Hello and welcome to Audible River. I'm Alan Rice, and I am very happy to have with me Reverend Dr. John R. Mabry, who is pastor in the United Church of Christ. He is the author of more than 40 books on spirituality, theology, and even some science fiction and fantasy. Also known as Pastor John, he currently teaches comparative theology at the Chaplaincy Institute and Interfaith Seminary in Berkeley, California, and he has a private practice providing spiritual direction to individuals. Well, hello, Pastor John. How are you today?
I'm just fine, Alan. Thank you so much. It's so good to be back.
Well, yeah, wonderful. Welcome you back. So, in our last time together, we talked about you explained a little bit about soteriology, and could you just recap that again for us so we kick this off with a little understanding of what that is?
Well, sure. Soteriology is kind of the big seminary word for theories of salvation. And when people hear salvation, they instantly think Christianity. But in fact, every religion has a theory, at least one, of salvation, because otherwise we wouldn't need religion, right? So every religions don't just fall out of the sky. We have better things to do with our time. Religions arise because we have a problem that needs to be solved. And so soteriology as a discipline asks, okay, what's the problem? So what is the basic problem with human nature according to this tradition? And how does this tradition propose to fix that problem? That is what soteriology is all about. And there is a different answer to that for every religion that we want to talk about. And what's so kind of exciting and fun is that, a lot of people say, well, at their base, all religions are the same. Well, no, they're not. Because they're trying to solve different problems.
There you go.
Yeah, and the fixes, the solutions that they come up with in order to solve those problems are also vastly different from each other. So this is what makes this study so fascinating, is that all of these problems are problems we can relate to in our own lives. And so why did this tradition pick this problem as the problem that needed to be solved, and around which all of its theology is constructed? So that's what makes this particular discipline so much fun.
Wow, it would be. I'm someone I love looking into these things myself, and I'm just very happy that I found you to discuss these things with. In our last episode, we talked about native traditions, and which basically encompass the world, I believe. That all the native traditions going back before the organized. Well, anyway, you can say better than I. But the native traditions sort of generated the next level of traditions, and we talked about the Eastern traditions that we would identify as like Hinduism or Jainism or Confucianism, Taoism. We talked about those things last time, and then we ran out of time, and we promised to talk about the Western traditions now. So where would you start? And where we left off, what would be the first religion that you would bring up to give us an idea of how Western religions have progressed?
Well, the place to start is Zoroastrianism.
Okay, let me say that. Zoroastrianism. Okay.
Yes,
okay,
that's correct. Zoroastrianism. And what's amazing to me is that so many world religions courses skip right over Zoroastrianism. And this is confounding because I don't think you can understand the history of Western religion without Zoroastrianism, because it is the starting place of Western religion as we know it. There are so many ideas in Western religion that get its origin here with this tradition. And there are still Zoroastrians around. There aren't many of them, but they're still around. But it used to be a major world religion. World religion. It was the imperial religion of the Persian Empire.
Wow. Oh, that's a big deal. So there,
It
that
it
was a,
was huge.
okay, but we've kind of like, I guess with the other religions that have come afterwards that have replaced it, so to speak, for the most part, we've forgotten as a culture what this is. So tell me some of the things that you would like to share about Zoroastrianism. How did Zoroastrianism become the root of Western religion? What aspects of it would you point to?
Well, you might remember last time we talked, I was talking about the Aryans, the people from the Russian steppes, who were kind of like the Dothraki in Game of Thrones. You know, they were horse people. They were a warrior race, and they rode down in a thundering horde and conquered what is now Iraq, Iran, Afghanistan, that area, and then they rode east into India, and they conquered northern India there. And their religion was Vedism.
Oh, okay.
And so in India, you have the Vedas, which are the oldest scriptures of Hinduism, and these are the texts that survive from the native tradition of Vedism. And then, of course, they had a reform movement, the Upanishadic shift that we talked about, that resulted in what we think about as Hinduism today. So, what happened to those Aryans who stayed in the area of Persia and the area of Iran and Afghanistan? So they brought their Vedic faith there as well, and they were practicing it, and they had conquered the people there and set up their caste system and so forth. And there was a priest, a Vedic priest named Spitma, and he had a vision. And in this vision, Ahura Mazda, which means the wise God in Avestan, which is a Vedic religion very closely related to Sanskrit. Ahura Mazda said, all of these gods that you're worshiping, like Agni and Indra and all of the Vedic gods and so forth, are not actually gods.
Wow.
I am the only God.
That's quite a revelation.
That is quite a revelation. Right. He said, there's only one God, and that is me, the wise God, Ahura Mazda. And all of these other gods that you worship are angels, and they work for me.
Oh, I see. So this was the first. This is like a seminal message of a hierarchy pointing to one source. Is what?
That's
okay.
right.
Okay. All right.
That's right.
Wow.
It's really the first monotheism that catches on.
Right. So I think that culturally, I mean, I'll put it this way. I mean, I recently read the Odyssey and the Iliad, and so that gave me like a real clear picture of what it was like to believe in polytheism, because the whole story was all about how everything that went on, the gods had something involved in it, and everywhere
Right.
but they were all different gods. And even though there was Zeus was in charge, they were all kind of competing with each other all the time, and there wasn't like it was just a lot of mayhem that they were just producing by these interassociations. So to come with the idea that no, these guys are all they're different than the one source. That not only is it a revelation, it's revolutionary, I think.
It is, absolutely. And the highest of the angels is called Spentamainu, which translates the Holy Spirit.
Oh, okay.
Now, also part of this revelation was that there is an evil spirit.
An evil spirit. So had this been a part of teaching before that?
No. I
Wow.
mean, other religions had, demonic forces, but the idea that there was a hierarchy of evil and uh, a big bad.
Right.
Um, yeah, that's new. That's new to Zoroastrianism.
Wow.
And so Angra Mainyu, which means the evil spirit, is basically the Dark Lord. Um, and he has all of these demons under him. And Spenta Mainyu has all of his angels. Angra Mainyu has all of his demons, and these two are duking it out for the fate of the universe.
Wow. So is this the first time this conflict? This is sounds very epic, but this is like a spiritual conflict between good and evil. So are you saying that this is like the first time this is put on the world stage with this revelation?
It's the first time that it's put on a cosmic stage.
Okay, and a cosmic stage. So it's like transcends the earthly experience is what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And this isn't a huge leap for a warrior people, right?
Okay.
It just took their political reality and projected it into the cosmos.
Okay.
So, pardon me, there must be a UPS driver coming up. My dogs are barking. I'm going to close my door just a second. That'll deal with the worst of it.
Okay.
So yeah. So now you have this cosmic conflict between good and evil. And this gives us the human condition in Zoroastrianism. Why is it that people suffer? Because we live on a battlefield.
And that would make sense. It would explain,
Yes.
right? It would explain how things. Now in my own research and just I'm not a scholar like yourself, but in looking into native traditions and different origin stories all over the world, there's a common theme in all of them, most of them, that everything was perfect, then something went wrong.
Yes.
But this story puts it into more detail, right? In a way, right? Relatable.
Yeah. Well, you've got. I think what's interesting is that it isn't something that humans did wrong.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
the fact the fact that Angra Mainyu chose to be a rebellious spirit, I think that's what kicks off the conflict. It isn't because that we've done anything wrong that we are living on this battlefield. We just happen to live here. There's no other place to live, and it's not something you can escape. However, you have to choose sides. And
Okay.
not to choose sides is to choose sides.
Okay. And does that mean okay? And okay, clarify that. So which side would we be choosing by not choosing?
Well, by not choosing, you would be choosing to side with Angra Mainyu and the evil spirits because you're not actively trying to get things back on track.
Right. So Ahura Mazda is basically saying, if you're not for me, you're against me, sort of.
Yes.
Right. So many words.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. So the human condition is that we're born onto this battlefield. There's this cosmic battle going on. And so the remedy is that we must align ourselves consciously with Ahura Mazda.
Okay. And is this protecting us in some way from the evil side?
Well, it puts us on the right side. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're protected from it. However, at the end of all things, there will be a judgment. And at this judgment, your deeds will be weighed, and you will either be assigned an eternity with Angra Mainyu and his demons in hell, or you will be allowed to join the righteous in heaven. So this is new. This
Wow.
is the first time we have a notion of a last judgment, a resurrection of the dead. By the way, that's part of it.
Wow.
This is the first time we have heaven. This is the first time we have hell. These are new ideas.
This is amazing. So why don't we know more about this? Thank you for sharing this, by the way. So now, okay, what else is, I mean, so now what happened next? I mean, after this revelation, I mean, so how did it spread? How did it become the religion of the empire?
Well, Zarathustra, who is Spitma, was given a new name, as often happens with prophets, and the name was given to him was Zarathustra, and Zarathustra either means the golden light or that guy with the yellow camel.
Could go.
Avestin is a vague language.
Okay.
But so Zarathustra brought his revelation to his fellow Vedic priests, and you can imagine how that was received.
Oh, wow. Like, yes, like you're crazy, I imagine.
Right, exactly. And so he and his followers were cast out into the desert, hoping they would die. And probably they fled so that they wouldn't just be killed.
Makes sense.
Yep. But they came across a warlord in Afghanistan who was convinced by Zarathustra's new theology against the advice of his own priests, and accepted it and became the first convert. And so from that point, Zoroastrianism became a missionary religion, and they went out and converted people, and eventually the ruling house of Persia was converted, and then they imposed the Zoroastrian religion on all of the people in their empire, and it just snowballed. It just grew and grew and grew.
Okay, so this idea of a missionary religion that's seeking converts, is this new with Zoroastrianism? Or how, were other religions doing this before them?
No, it is a new thing. That's right. So it was another of these novelties. So little, I didn't give the time frame. So Zarathustra probably lived about 1,700 years BCE.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, this is blowing my mind. I mean, I've heard about Zoroastrianism and just kind of run across it in references, to it. But these details, I mean, there's so much there. Like, okay, well, growing up Christian, I can immediately identify with just about everything you're talking about here as being part of the Christian religion. So, what? Okay, well, we'll keep going. What would you say? I mean, are there other things that the concepts that had a genesis in Zoroastrianism that you see, like even today in modern Christianity, but that got picked up along the way?
Well, there are so many.
Okay.
It's even hard to catalog. The idea of a Messiah is a Zoroastrian idea. The idea of the eternal flame. So if you walk into a Catholic church, there will be a flame that is always on next to the tabernacle. That has its origin in Zoroastrianism. The story in Christianity of the three kings. The three kings were Zoroastrian priests.
Oh.
So, the church in the Nativity in Bethlehem, over the door, there is a bas relief of three Zoroastrian priests, and that is why when the Persians sacked it, sacked the city of Bethlehem and burned everything to the ground, they didn't touch this building because there were pictures of Zoroastrian priests over the door.
Oh, interesting. And that's why it survived. And that's why we can. Is it still there today?
Yes, that's why we can go there today. That's right.
Wow.
That's why it's still there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So then, what now? So 1700 BC, but wasn't Judaism already, or wasn't Abraham? I mean, what happened there? I mean, is this concurrent, or how were they connected?
Well, that's a nice pivot for us to to pivot into Judaism there, because the two are definitely related. So let's talk about Judaism. When we talk about Judaism, we really have to designate a kind of a split in the timeline between the Judaism before the Babylonian exile and the Judaism after the Babylonian exile.
Okay.
So before the Babylonian exile, if you look at any of the biblical books that were written before that, there's no mention of heaven or hell.
Okay.
There's no mention of a Satan. The Jews at that time were not monotheists. They were henotheists.
And what is a henotheist?
So henotheism means that they believe there were many gods, but we only deal with one.
Well, you know what? It's interesting you say that, because when I read the Bible, I mean, the way I called it, I said, well, it looks like Jehovah's a tribal God. He doesn't belong to anybody else, and he's competing with the other gods. He's like, yes, this is our guy.
That is exactly right. So the God of Israel is called the God of Israel because he is jurisdictionally the God of Israel and Judah, So, and if you go across the river into Baal's territory, you got to deal with Baal. You're on your own.
Jehovah may not help you there, right? Is that the deal?
Right. It's not his jurisdiction.
Okay. Oh, interesting. Yeah. Well, that doesn't get talked about much in the churches I've been to, but when I just like a direct reading of the Bible, I'm thinking like, that sounds like what they're saying here. But okay, yep. But you're confirming that.
Exactly. And so when the Jews get carried into captivity, into slavery in Babylon, they came into contact with Zoroastrians.
Oh, there.
And so they came in contact with these people saying, Ahura Mazda is the only God. And they thought, what if our God is the only God?
Well, of course.
Right. And so they also absorbed all of these ideas about angels and demons and heaven and hell. I mean, if you look at pre-exilic Judaism, what happens when you die?
I mean, nothing as far as I know. I mean, what is it? What would you say?
Well, you go to Sheol.
Sheol, right, which is...
And Sheol is pretty much exactly the same as Hades in the Odyssey and the Iliad,
right?
Which is this shadowy kind of afterlife where eventually the soul fades out, and it's like and everybody goes there. It's not like there's no system of reward or punishment or anything.
Yeah.
It's all sometimes just referred to in the Hebrew Bible as the grave.
Right. Yeah, yeah, I'm glad you put that in some better detail, because that's my impression, but I wasn't going to say because I'm not an expert. But that makes sense with what I understand, and it also goes along with other things that I've come across in other older beliefs. Yeah,
exactly, right. Exactly. So this continues with our Zoroastrian kind of theme here, because so here the Jews they're in Babylon. They're enslaved, and the Babylonians get conquered by the Zoroastrians, by the Persians.
Okay.
And King Cyrus, the Persian king, it was his policy, because he was a righteous man, that when they came upon a captured people, they would help those people go home.
Oh, interesting. They believed in
Yes.
in freeing the underprivileged or whatever, freeing the people that had been oppressed.
Yes,
Right.
exactly.
Wow.
Because Ahura Mazda is a god of justice, and we are to be and Zoroastrians are to be a people of justice.
To represent Ahura Mazda in this world.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly. You
Okay.
want to, okay? So the mantra in in Zoroastrianism is good thoughts, good words, good deeds.
Wow. I like that.
Yeah, and so if you saw the movie about Freddie Mercury
Uh-huh.
and Queen, okay, did you see that film?
No, I didn't. I'm going to have to now.
Okay, you're going to have to see it
Okay.
because Freddie Mercury's family were Zoroastrians. He's from a Zoroastrian family.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Yes, yes. So when Islam moved in and conquered the Persian areas, a lot of the Zoroastrians there fled rather than be converted. Some went into the hills and hid, but some fled, and they fled to India. And when they got to India, they landed on the shore, and they asked the local king there permission to settle. And in answer, the king sent a cup full of milk that was full to the brim, and it was his answer that we're full here. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
And so the Zoroastrians, they put a bunch of sugar in the milk and sent it back.
Oh, clever. Okay, did it work?
Yeah. So their answer was, we are not going to overpopulate your area, but we are going to make your culture sweeter.
Okay, and so a little science note on the sugar, it did not increase the volume, it dissolved into the liquid, right? Is that how it works?
That's right. It dissolved into the liquid.
Okay.
And so the Indian king says, okay, I'll allow you to settle here, but you cannot proselytize.
Okay.
And so at that point, Zoroastrianism ceased to be a missionary religion.
Okay, under agreement with the king of that territory.
That's right. That's right. And so those people who settled, the Zoroastrians who settled in India, are now called Parsis,
They're the Parsis. Okay.
which means those people from Persia.
Okay. Okay. Makes sense.
Yep. And Freddie Mercury's family was a Parsi family. And the British government, when they were ruling India, had a very close relationship with the Parsis because they were very well educated. You know, they were the doctors and the lawyers and so forth. So there's actually a lot of Parsis in Britain. And at one point in the film, Freddie Mercury's father gets up in his face and says, "Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. You know, you're not living right."
Okay. So, but right there in the movie, that's the mantra of Zoroastrianism, and that's the little the stamp of Zoroastrianism right there in the movie is what you're saying. I was like, well, oh,
Absolutely.
we know where that's from.
It's right there. Yeah.
Okay.
And I have a whole riff about Zoroastrian themes and Queen lyrics, but I'll save you that.
Okay.
So,
all right. Another episode.
So back to Judaism.
Yes.
So the Zoroastrian king freed the Jews, and he allowed them to go home. And so they went back to Israel, and he gave them money to rebuild their temple. And so this is called the Second Temple period then, because the first temple had been destroyed. And so now they're building the second temple. Um, and uh,
Yes.
and so these ideas from Zoroastrianism really start to catch on among Judaism. And by the time of Jesus, you've got quite a split. You've got the Sadducees, and the Sadducees are the temple cult. These are the people who run the temple. These are the priests. And they don't believe in the resurrection, and they don't believe in heaven, and they don't believe in hell. They don't believe any of these Persian beliefs.
Oh, they're like the purist or whatever. I mean, they're like a fundamentalist, well, let's say, of Judaism.
Exactly. But then you have the Pharisees,
Oh,
which
okay.
which was who Jesus was part of. Jesus was a Pharisee, and the Pharisees adopted all of these Persian beliefs, and it's not an accident that there is an etymological link between Parsi and Pharisee.
Oh, okay. Okay. That makes sense. Okay. I see that now.
Yeah, so the Pharisees are those people who have adopted the Persian beliefs.
So Jesus grew up in a culture that we call Judaism, but it was actually strongly influenced by Zoroastrianism within Judaism, right? Is that this was
Yes,
right? Okay, got it. And then
absolutely.
there were the Sadducees that didn't accept any of that, and did they consider themselves in charge of all the Jews, or I mean, I was just wondering how the power structure worked there, in organizing their religion, or was there an organization?
Well, the Sadducees were in charge of the temple, and that was kind of like the seat of power.
Yeah.
But even then, Judaism was very much a congregational kind of religion, because you have synagogues in every city, and the synagogues were self-governing.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, but you have rabbis, and the rabbis generally come out of the Pharisaical movement. And so when the temple was destroyed by the Romans in the year 70, what was left basically was Pharisaical Judaism.
Oh, I see.
And so that's what survived.
So when the temple was destroyed, they destroyed the seat of power of the Sadducees and pretty much ended their major influence over Judaism, is what I'm hearing.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. And so what survives are these Persian influenced teachings via the Pharisees. So sorry. So let's back up a little bit and talk about the soteriological dilemma of Judaism, because whether you're talking about pre-exile or post-exile, it doesn't matter. The problem for Jews is always the same.
What
And
is it?
that problem is everyone's trying to kill us.
Okay, that problem seems to have persisted throughout history.
Totally. I mean, you look at so Pharaoh lets Moses take the Hebrew people out of Egypt, and so you have these hundreds of thousands of people going through the desert, and they are going through the lands of these these pagan rulers, and all they want to do is wipe them out
Everywhere they go, right?
everywhere they go.
Right.
Exactly, because they're a threat. I mean, there are a lot of people.
There are a lot of people, and nobody wants them around because they're just going to use up stuff and be trouble. We're talking about ancient world where there was a lot of competition for whatever resources people could manage to control, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Exactly. So So the human condition for Judaism is the risk of the extinction of the tribe.
Wow. So that could be that could be a number one issue if that becomes the thing that you talk about, the reality that you live in. So then what you're saying is the soteriology is dealing with that problem. I mean, that's the
Yep,
right.
absolutely.
Okay. All right. So
Yep.
what's the solution
That is
that they had? Go ahead.
that is the single point that all of Judaism revolves around, and
I'm
the
sorry.
risk of extinction of the tribe.
Okay.
And you can see that even today.
Well, yeah, no question. I mean, it's easy to see that as a, a big salient issue within Judaism right now.
Yep, yep. So so you've got this risk of extinction. What's the remedy? How do you fix that? And the way you fix that is through supernatural assistance. And so and the means to that is obedience to the law. So God comes and says, said something really kind of revolutionary. God says, "Look, I will bind myself to you. We will make an agreement, a covenant, you and I,
Okay.
between me and you, the Jewish people. If you keep my law, I will keep you safe from your murderous neighbors."
That's quite a contract to make.
Yep,
Right.
that's the deal. If you don't keep the law, all bets are off, and I'm not going to protect you.
So let me ask you: is this replicated in any other tradition, or I'm just curious if this is unique to Judaism? This kind of bargain with the one God who can control everything.
It is unique to Judaism. It is we first see it here.
Okay.
And it's the first time that we see that a deity morally binds himself to human beings.
It seems unnecessary by the deity. So what does the deity get out of it? I mean, it's just I'm just wondering I'm just wondering how do you make a deal like that? Is it out of generosity or compassion for these people, or I mean, what is your insight on that? Does it matter? I don't know.
Well, I think the Jewish prophets tell us very plainly it's love.
Wow, just
God,
love.
God desires to be loved.
Wow, it would make a deal with the Hebrew people that if you keep my laws and love me, I'll take care of you. So it's like a family thing. So that's where the father figure comes in, I guess, right?
Well, it's more than father. It's more like bridegroom.
Oh, okay.
And so that's where you get this image in Judaism of God as the groom and Israel as the bride. And they're entering into a covenant of love. And so he is going to protect her, and she is going to serve him and be obedient to him.
Well, that's very attractive, really. I mean, you think about that. I mean, it's something to belong to, being in that kind of, that emotional bond in that way, that sort of commitment. I'm thinking about that. I mean, I really don't know that much about Judaism, and this sounds like, I like that feeling.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Well, read the book of Hosea.
Okay.
Which is one of the minor prophets. It's short, but it's very interesting because it lays all of this out very, very plainly. But then you also have the Song of Songs, which is a book of erotic love poetry, which the rabbis understand as being the love song between God and Israel.
So this reaches deep into human affections. This
Yes.
this religion. I mean, this is deep. It goes all the way through. It's not just awe for the Creator. This is encompassing your entire being into
exactly.
Right.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that was exactly what the Pharisees were saying. The Sadducees were saying, "Oh, just come and make your sacrifices. Everything will be good." And the Pharisees were saying, "No, God wants your heart."
Ooh, and that's a big ask. And if
Yes,
the Sadducees thought that they had it easy, they could just pay their dues and just go do whatever they want. But
exactly. Exactly. And the Pharisees were saying, no, this sacrifice isn't something you just make at the temple once a year. It's something you make in your life every single day.
and so the Pharisees were saying this within that time, and so we haven't even talked about the teachings of Jesus yet. But it sounds like that. I mean, for me, from what I'm getting, what you're saying is that a lot of the things that I understand that Jesus talked about was already in circulation among the Pharisees. Is that
Absolutely.
okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Well, let's finish out Judaism and
Okay.
then let's turn the corner into Christianity. So, um, one thing to keep in mind about Judaism is that the kind of salvation that it is offering is a corporate form of salvation.
Okay.
So there's no salvation for the individual. The individual is not important in Judaism. What's important is the tribe.
Oh, a great distinction. Okay. Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
So the tribe is going to survive as long as we keep the law.
And to survive yourself, you need to be committed with the tribe. Is that sort of in there, or?
Well, the self doesn't really matter. If you want to live forever, have children.
Okay. All right. So this whole, I mean, the individual salvation isn't really a thing, is what you're talking about.
It isn't a thing. No, it's
Okay.
not part of the religion.
Okay.
So, you have these Zoroastrian ideas about, heaven and hell and so forth, but they never really reach the level of doctrine in Judaism. They're mythology, but they're not necessarily doctrine. So the Jews say, be faithful to God in this life. God will be faithful to you in the next. More than this, you don't need to know.
Okay. Just trust, and you'll be okay, sort of thing.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so if you go to synagogue, you are not going to hear about heaven or hell, because it's not a big deal in Judaism. It's mythology.
Okay.
What's a big deal is the survival of the tribe, which is what you can see on display right now in the war going on in Israel. It's like it is a people trying to survive.
That explains a lot. And what you're talking about here is a culture, an ideology that's deeply embedded, goes back thousands of years, and these people have preserved it. In a way that's in a way that I can't. It's hard to imagine, but I'm trying to. Being in that, right? I mean, I can imagine it abstractly, but what it's like to live in that culture. That
Yes.
Yeah. So it is really something for me to think about, being outside of it and recognizing that this is a reality for these people, and how it affects their decisions and what happens around them. It's a big deal.
But this is true of any religion. In
Okay.
any religion, every religion is a story.
Okay.
And when you belong to this religion, you live inside the story that the religion tells. And it's a completely different world.
Oh, that is so succinctly put. Yes, right. I've just got to, I mean, I can relate to that because I think you and I said before, I grew up in a Southern Baptist church. I recently went back to visit my relatives in Virginia, and my mom, bless her heart, she wanted me to go with her to a tent revival service, and I did, right? And so I haven't.
Wow. Oh, bless you, brave soul.
I know, right? But I was doing it as an observer. It was like, and to just want to, like, well, I'm going to go and I'm going to enjoy the environment and, like, see how these people are enjoying what they're doing. But being that I grew up in it, it was okay. In some moments, I'll say triggering, but
Yep.
but in other ways, it gave me a lot of insight into things I hadn't thought about before, about how everyone there was really committed into, as you say, the story that they are living, and
Yes.
that this is their reality, and that
Yes.
I had to respect that
Yes.
for them, and I wasn't feeling any need whatsoever to challenge what they were enjoying and experiencing being there. But for me, it gave me, years of perspective to look at it with some insight. So anyway, I was digressing onto this whole "you live in the story" thing. Yes, but I saw it myself.
A little sociological distance is a fine thing.
Yeah, to be able to observe. Yes, it is.
Exactly, exactly. All right, so let's turn the corner and talk about Christianity.
All right.
So Christianity arises within Judaism as as a Jewish sect originally, um, and and its story arises out of the story of Israel as well. So um, in the Judaism of Jesus's time, you've got two main schools of Pharisaism. You've got the school of Hillel, which we might today call the liberal Pharisees,
Okay.
and you've got the school of Shammai, which we might call the conservative Pharisees.
Okay.
And Jesus's teachings, you are will probably not be surprised to know, are very, very similar to Hillel's. In fact, they're direct links. And the people who challenge him, the Pharisees that are challenging him, are spouting things that the followers of Shammai would say. And so, in Jesus's condemnation of the Pharisees, Jesus never condemned anybody except his own religious uh, denomination, so to speak.
Okay.
And he was only criticizing those who were betraying the spirit, what he felt was the spirit of that religious movement, that of Pharisaism. So the followers of Shammai were pushing a very, very fundamentalist, conservative version of Pharisaism, and Jesus felt like that was a betrayal of the spirit of what the Pharisaical movement was all about.
Right. Okay. Wow. So, right, I remember that, in the Bible reading about, there's discussions with different Pharisees and how they would challenge him, with different, pointed questions and things like that. Uh, but, thank you for pointing this out, because I'm obviously not an expert in any of this, but there's these different schools. But the interesting thing to me right now hearing this is that, Jesus, his teachings. Okay, I'm going to imagine. I don't know. You're going to tell me. But maybe Jesus had his own ideas, but he was using the ideas at hand that he most closely uh, identify with, or agree, or something. He was using what people already were talking about to express whatever it is that he was trying to teach. Does that make sense?
The way I would put it is he was already teaching within a tradition.
Okay, already teaching within a tradition. Okay, but
He
what's
was teaching within the Hillel tradition of Pharisaical Judaism.
so? But what set him apart from the other Pharisees of the Hillel tradition? I mean, why did he propel into such prominence?
Well, that's a really good question, and it's not one that we really know the answer to.
Okay.
Because scholars today often talk about the pre-Easter Jesus and the post-Easter Jesus. And the pre-Easter Jesus is pretty much just a Pharisaical rabbi.
Okay.
And the post-Easter Jesus is something more.
Well, yes, exactly. If I have
Yeah.
any indication by what I've been told lately, yes, definitely something.
Right, right. So let's get into some of this, some of the teachings of Jesus here. So Jesus was an eschatological prophet. So he's talking about the kingdom of God and the arrival of the kingdom. And a lot of people at this time were thinking that meant that the Messiah was going to show up with an army and overthrow the Romans.
That's what they wanted, I guess, right?
It's what they want. It was what they were expecting.
Oh,
It
okay.
was, it was what they thought had been foretold. So the Messiah would show up. They would defeat the Romans, and they would begin to rule the people according to the Torah, and then the kingdom of God would be manifest on earth.
Hey, wait a second. This sounds very familiar to things I hear people saying today.
Well, yes, we can get into that.
Okay, right. Okay, go ahead.
It is related for sure.
Okay.
So, so Jesus's teachings about the kingdom of God were subversive to this notion, because he was saying, yes, the kingdom of God is coming, but it's already here.
Okay. Ah.
So when you say, when the psalmist says that the whole earth is God's, that's not eschatological. That's true now. So if you are a bird and you are flying across a state line, the bird doesn't know he's flying across the state line, because the state line is something that only exists in the human imagination.
And the bird, it's nothing to the bird.
It means nothing to the bird.
Right.
Jesus was saying all of these political machinations only exist in the imagination of humans. They aren't real. The only thing that's real is that God is king. The earth belongs to the Lord.
Okay. So wait, you know what? Is what I'm getting here is that this is something, this is like a different, this is something beyond supernatural belief. I mean, I kind of, so to me, what comes to mind about the teachings of Jesus is that he's talking about a spiritual nature that really hadn't been detailed in any of these other religions that I think we're talking about. I mean, something about a spiritual relationship between people and God. So, am I onto something there? Does this make sense with what you're about to say?
No, that's what Greek thought did to Jesus's thought.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
Jesus's thought is much more boots on the ground.
Okay.
Jesus isn't saying that God's, that the physical ruler of the earth is Rome, but the spiritual ruler of the earth is God. Jesus was saying the physical ruler of the earth is God.
Oh.
And Caesar is nuts. Caesar is deluded, and he has deluded you as well, and everybody else into thinking that he is the ruler. He is not.
Interesting.
So you can see how subversive that notion was, and how upsetting that would be, not just to the Romans, but to the Sadducee leaders who were trying to play nice with the Romans.
Okay, so that kind of explains that little. If I remember correctly, that thing that Jesus is quoted as saying to Pilate is like, any power that you have. What does he say there to Pilate? Something about, the only power you have is come to you from somewhere else, right? You don't have any power.
Exactly.
You don't have any real power in this world. It's only been given to you, right?
That's right.
From beyond.
That's right.
Yes.
Exactly.
Okay.
So Jesus is inviting us to throw off the shackles of these political delusions and live in the reality of the God-ruled universe right now.
And why not? I mean, if you're gonna really recognize reality
Yes.
and throw off all the made up stuff,
Yep.
right, then this is it.
Yes, this is it.
Right.
God is here. God is in charge. God, the earth is the Lord's and all that is within it.
Wow. But on the other hand, it is up to all of us to choose to recognize that, to make it whatever it's supposed to be. It comes down to choices. So how does that, I mean, these are my questions, but what does Jesus say about this? Does this, mean anything to you as far as talking about Christianity, the choices that we make?
Well, I mean, this is the struggle that Christianity has had ever since. So let me put that on hold for just a minute and talk a little bit more. So we need to situate Jesus into the story of Israel, and the story of Israel is that God is the enemy of tyranny.
Oh, okay.
So the people the people of Israel were enslaved in Egypt, and the Pharaoh was forced by God to let them go. God was the enemy of Pharaoh, and God won, and the people were liberated. Mm-hmm. And the people were taken into captivity by Babylon, and through Cyrus, God once again liberated his people from tyranny. And now his people are once more enslaved by the Romans, and Jesus is saying, this is what God does. God sets people free from tyranny.
Wow.
And so wake up and recognize that God is already king here.
So if we did wake up, and if we recognize that God was king, and if we did it as a whole,
yes,
then Caesar would have no power over us. Is that the idea?
Would have absolutely no power.
Right, exactly. It's only by our acceptance of
Yes.
the delusion that we
Yes.
are allowing Caesar to have power.
Exactly.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, and so you can see why that would not be a favorable idea to the people who have power because they are playing nice with Rome, and these are the people who had Jesus killed, here's where the resurrection comes in. So Jesus proves what he is saying. So Jesus lives in the reality of God's present kingdom, and he stands up to the might of Rome and says no. And Rome thinks they can just toss him like a rag doll and has him crucified, and he stands up again.
Wow.
And he said, I said no.
Wow.
And thereafter, for the next few centuries, you have all of these Christians embracing martyrdom, doing exactly the same thing, because they have been promised that if you become one being with this deathless being, Jesus, then everything that is his becomes yours, and everything that is yours becomes his, and what you absorb in that mystical union is not just his divinity, but also his immortality and his resurrection. And so you too can stand up to Rome and say, no.
Wow.
Because God will raise you up just like God raised up Jesus. And that's why you had thousands and thousands of Christian martyrs in the early part of Christianity. It was the story.
Wow. I mean, to think of that as living in, I mean, today, to imagine this kind of movement happening is like almost unimaginable.
Yes.
Yeah, that any group of people would believe. I mean, I know we get martyrs or whatever. I mean, that the idea of a martyrdom, but to have that many people believe so strongly. Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah. I'm just my mind is just kind of blown a little bit. Just
You're so welcome. Right.
okay.
And so, and then Paul takes this same message of tyranny and projects it onto the cosmic scale. So Paul says, we don't wrestle against, human powers. We're wrestling against cosmic powers.
Okay, we're going back to the Zoroastrian
Exactly.
fight between good and evil. Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. And so God is going to rescue us from the tyranny of Satan.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, God is going to rescue us from the tyranny of death.
Big ones. So, I mean, any person who just wants to be able to live and enjoy their life and just, eat, drink, and sleep as they please, doesn't want to be bothered with evil, right? I mean, like somebody stealing your stuff or coming to hurt you. I mean, okay. So if somebody can promise me that there's some relief from that,
yes,
and that if I do happen to get killed by one of these people that are bad, I'm going to live anyway. So
yep, exactly. Exactly. And the down payment on that,
yes,
the what is, what is given in trust so that you can trust that was Jesus's own resurrection. Wow.
So now the resurrection, I don't know what to say about that. You have accounts that it happened, and then he went into heaven. You have his own apostles that he spoke to. Yeah, but because that is something. Do we have a resurrection that has occurred like this in any other stories, or is this like the first time that we encounter this in religious tales? Or it's not. I don't know how to say it, but is this the first time we come across a resurrection?
No.
Okay. All right.
No. Plenty of resurrections beforehand, but
right. Okay.
This, what makes this different, theologians would say, is that that all of the myths of people coming back to life before were shadows and foreshadowings of this moment of history.
Meaning, okay, say that again in a way. I don't know what that means. What moment in history? This moment, or are we talking about with Jesus, or?
Yes.
Okay.
That Jesus is in Jesus rising from the dead. He made history what was foreshadowed in mythology.
Oh, I see. So there were stories of beings who had been resurrected, but you were saying, they're myths. They're like, we don't know if they really happened. But with Jesus, this was told as fact. This
Exactly.
is like the people who tell the story. This absolutely happened. There's no question about it. This is a real thing, and there you go.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And that's the Christian story.
Yes. Okay.
That God is going to liberate us from every form of tyranny, whether that is Rome, or Satan, or death, or addiction, or sin, or anything else that has us in its grip.
Yeah, but
anything that threatens to steal our lives from us is a tyrant, and that is the enemy of God.
Okay. And God's going to protect us so does Christianity, did the covenant of Judaism carry over into Christianity? That's what I'm wondering about right now. So is there a bargain there? Does the bargain still exist, or is this, how do we get this, is it more than, I know Jesus said, and this is his words, believe in me. So what do you, and we take it now as like, well, do you believe in Santa Claus or do you believe in the Easter fairy? I think it's different. I mean, I don't know. I'm not, but I understand it differently. More like, do you believe what I'm saying? Not so much, do you believe that I exist? I mean, what do you think?
Well, this is really important because in the language of the New Testament, the Greek, Koine Greek, the word pistis is often translated believe, but it can also be translated faith.
Okay.
And it can also be translated trust.
Okay. Well, okay. This is good.
And Christians have made the mistake over the centuries of understanding this covenant that we have with God, which is not the same as the Jewish covenant. It's our own covenant. But we have come to understand this covenant to be that our part of it is intellectual assent to this list of metaphysical propositions that we find in the creed. In other words, if you believe these things, you will have eternal life. But that's not the deal.
Okay. Tell me the deal.
Okay. It's not about believing certain things. It's about trusting a certain person.
See, when you say that, it suddenly feels right.
Yes.
That's something. That's a thing. Right.
Yeah. It's not about believing the right things. It's about trusting this person, Jesus.
And so when you talk about, personal savior, personal religion, so it becomes personal. It becomes person to person. And it's a wow. And the trust can only happen between sentient beings, let's say. I mean, people who can have a communication, or you can understand that there is another person to trust.
Well,
right.
That's true. That's true. But, the idea of Christianity as an individualistic religion is actually only with us since the Enlightenment. This is a Protestant idea and really kind of a left-wing Protestant idea. For most of the church's history, salvation was corporate. So if you are baptized, you are baptized into Jesus. You become one being with Jesus.
Oh, the body of Christ thing, right?
The body of Christ. And so you also become one being with everyone else who has been baptized into Jesus. So we aren't saved as individuals. We are saved as a group.
Okay. Well, I mean, okay. I'm just thinking it could be both, right? I mean, theoretically.
Well, and that's where Protestantism comes in. That
right.
But up until the Protestant Reformation, it was only thought of as a corporate event. This is why the church fathers say that the church is like Noah's Ark. If you want to be saved from the flood, you get on the ark.
Okay, and I can see how. And I'm just thinking about me and me being born in the time that I am in. So I really have to work at understanding what that's like. Because I don't know, being an American or it just how I was raised, whatever. It's just this individualism is just kind of baked into me, and so
exactly.
Yeah, right. And so
yeah,
right.
It's part of the American story that we live inside.
Yes, right.
And it has twisted the Christian story.
Right. Yes. There you go. So that's kind of what I'm coming to grips with, and it's great to hear your recitation of the history of it and how the ideas evolved and the different influences to help me understand, like, okay, what I was exposed to as a child and the conflicting ideas, because what ends up happening, especially in modern culture, because we have so mixtures of so many things, is that we're told a lot of contradicting things. That's what
Yes, we are. Yes.
So anyway, that's again, that could be another episode. But you know what? And so, do you think that this is a good time to because I want to kind of bring it forward a little bit because there are other, what we would call Western traditions now. A huge one is Islam, right? And
Sure, yes.
So I kind of want to, I kind of want to talk about Islam a bit before we run out of time here. And so, is this you think it's a good time to segue into that, or?
Oh, I think we've already run out of time, so let's shoehorn Islam in. So, absolutely.
Okay.
So, the world that the Prophet Muhammad was born into was one that was really, it was very tribal. He knew Jews, he knew Christians.
Okay.
But his own people were largely pagans, worshiping native in their own native tradition, and something that was absolutely destroying their community, their whole way of life was the blood feud. So the blood feud is, let's say I find a dead goat on the border between my property and your property. So I figure you must have killed my goat. So I've got to kill 2 of your goats.
Oh, so it really escalates.
Well,
quickly.
you can't let that stand because you will lose honor.
Oh.
So you have to kill 2 of my goats and 1 of my cows. Well, I can't let that stand. So I kill your sister.
Oh my goodness. Right.
And you can't let that stand. And so you've got these blood feuds going on between all of these different tribes all the time. And there's nothing to stop the escalation. And it is absolutely destroying the prosperity. You have these cities of Christians who are ruled by a book, and they are thriving. And you've got these communities of Jews who are ruled by a book, and they are thriving. And they don't have these blood feuds. And so Muhammad goes to Allah and says, you have given a prophet to the Christians. You have given a prophet to the Jews. Why have you not given us a prophet? Don't you love us?
So who is?
And God said, be careful what you ask for.
Okay, now hang on a second. Who is us? I missed that part. I mean,
the Arab people.
The Arab people. So they don't. So the Arab people don't identify with those 2 religions. It's not in their tradition. They didn't come. So and then Muhammad is of the Arab people, and he's observing these the Judaism and Christianity. And okay, all right, continue the story. Okay, go ahead.
Right. How come you haven't given us a prophet, and why haven't you given us a book? Because we're dying here.
Okay, I get it.
And God says, well, okay, you'll do.
Okay, right. Since you asked.
And he starts giving, through the angel Gabriel, starts delivering these messages.
Okay.
And the messages are in poetry, and they're absolutely gorgeous.
Wow.
And when Muhammad starts to recite them, of course, it pisses a lot of people off because it's monotheistic for one thing, and his people are polytheists. So instantly you've got people against him there. But some of the people who would object the loudest were so struck by the poetry, by the beauty of it, that they accepted the revelation.
Isn't that something? Right. It's the
Yes.
art. It's the art. It's the right. So that, the way that it's presented, presented, the way the voice that's in the poetry is what you're saying is what people were listening to, and that
it's so powerful,
right.
And it's why you can't translate the Quran.
Oh, I see. Okay, right.
So any translation of the Quran is not the Quran.
So it has to be in the original, and you have to understand
Exactly.
that language to really
Yes.
get the message.
Because that's where the power is.
Oh. Well, this is amazing. Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
The power of that poetry, it's so profound. It's why it's why Muslims continue to pray in Arabic.
I didn't know any of this. This is really amazing, and I get it now. I get it now. So poetry can be, because I've read poems that just really, just open up my heart, and just like my day, and just everything about me is just like really transformed by reading a really good poem. So you're saying,
Oh, sure.
yeah, right.
Yeah. And it knocked people off their feet, and so he started gaining converts. And so more and more revelations started coming to him, and, people started writing these down. The Quran wasn't something that, like the Prophet Muhammad just sat down and wrote. They were revelations that were given in reactions to situations.
Okay.
That in the early Muslim community, probably Muhammad was was not literate himself, and so there were people around him who were writing these down, because Gabriel says, recite. He didn't say write this down. He says recite.
Interesting. So Muhammad's receiving these messages from a supernatural source because he asked a question. And
Yes.
right. He just happened to be the one to come up with the question. He got the answer. And,
That's right.
And the answer was being written down by others, and becoming this powerful message to his people. Wow.
Exactly.
Wow.
So what is the message?
Okay. Yeah. Tell me.
So the human condition is that the people are in incredible suffering, and there is all of this injustice, and it's all because of human pride.
Oh, pride. That goes back to
of my pride, I can't let go of this blood, this blood contract that we've got going, where I've got to be saving, the honor of my tribe at the expense of your tribe. It's all about pride. And so the remedy that emerges in these revelations is that we must found the Ummah, which means the just society.
Okay. The Ummah. Yeah, for all of us, right?
Yes, for everybody. Mm-hmm. That's right. And so the means, the way that we establish the Ummah is submission to Allah.
Okay. So again, well, that's another kind of covenant, aren't we talking about? There's
exactly.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's another kind of covenant. And so, you've got these heads of these powerful clans and these powerful families, who are going to preserve their honor at all costs. And Muhammad says, no, hear what Allah says. You must get on your faces with your asses in the air 5 times a day, in front of your women, and in front of your slaves, and in front of your children. You must humble yourself before God and before everyone else.
Wow.
You must break your pride.
Ooh. Wow.
So he comes up with a systematic way of breaking the pride of men.
Well, it's phenomenal that it worked. I mean that it would work to any degree.
Exactly. Right. I mean, you can argue the degree to which it worked, but
yes.
But as far as a massive re-education campaign, it was phenomenally successful. And it taught people to put the good of the community above the good of oneself and the good of one's own tribe. And so those who are submitted, which is what Islam means,
submitted,
saw the good of the whole community, whether believers or not, as their tribe, not their family.
Oh, the whole community. So this is an expansive idea of
Yes.
community. Right.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
interesting.
And it doesn't include pagans, but it does include Christians and Jews and Zoroastrians, other people of the book.
Oh, so all of us who believe in the one God, basically,
Yes.
if you're monotheistic mostly, and you can accept that there is the one God of all
Yes.
things, then you are part of the community.
That's right.
Okay. Wow. That's thank you, because I know very little about Islam. This is very helpful.
So, of course, there were a lot of people who did not like this message. And so Muhammad had to flee for his life. And so under cover of night, he and all of his followers fled to Medina, because the people of Medina had said, "We hear you're doing good things, and we will accept your message, all of us."
Really? Wow.
And so Medina becomes the laboratory for Islam, basically.
So now he has a real community and people who are establish the foundation of a growing, we could call it religion or a philosophical movement or whatever, but it's a cultural thing, really, isn't it?
Yes.
Right. Okay. Wow. And I guess that the fact, I'm just imagining here, and as they say, the proof is in the pudding. If people can diminish violence and bring about peaceful association, it generally means prosperity for most people.
Exactly. And so salvation in Islam is not about the afterlife.
Okay.
It's about this life. It's about the life of your community. It's about the foundation of the Ummah. It's about creating the just society where everyone, no matter whether rich or poor, whether, no matter what tribe they belong to, where everyone has enough to eat, where everyone has justice.
Wait, so you're saying that the Islamic view of the community is like, maybe, okay, if I expand it to the end of the thinking on this, something like we're talking about the whole world living in peace. Like
Yes.
that would be the ultimate. That would be the ultimate Islamic goal. Like all of us are
Yes.
living in peaceful harmony and justice for everyone.
Yes.
And that's here now on this earth. We're not waiting for heaven. We're not waiting for reward. We're doing it here and now for all of us.
That's right.
Okay.
That's
Wow,
right.
I
The
love
Arabic word for this is salam.
that. Salam. Wow. Okay.
So peace.
Peace.
Yes, which is etymologically linked to shalom in Hebrew.
Oh, I see. Of course. Yes. Wow. Well, as you say, I think we're running. We're running long here, and I don't want to keep us both here all day. But you know what? This has been amazing. I love our talks. I mean, I could do this like all afternoon with you. But
well, we have other traditions that we haven't hit. We've talked about maybe Sikhism and maybe New Thought and maybe Mormonism. So let's do this again sometime and hit some of the traditions that we weren't able to get in these first two.
Yeah, there you go. Right, and we bring it, and then we can bring it more into what we have going on now. The more. I mean, these things you just talked about, Sikhism, Mormonism, New Thought. These are more recent sort of developments. And I like that. So, yes, stay tuned for the next episode.
Thank you so much, Alan. This was so much fun.
And thank you very much, Pastor John. And that is all.
Oh, you're so welcome.
Oh, yes, and you are too. And that is all for this episode of Audible River. We greatly appreciate our listeners all over the world and wherever you are on this wonderful planet. We'd love to know what you think of our podcast. So please email us at audibleriverpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for listening.